the crimson sun of Kepler-4 to be cast long shadows across the crystalline domes of New Eden colony. As Elena Vasquez made her final atmospheric readings of the day, the terraforming towers hummed their familiar song in the distance, gradually converting the alien atmosphere into something breathable for human lungs. After 3 years on this world, she'd grown to love the ethereal beauty of the purple-tinted grass swaying in the gentle breeze. Still working late again? Marcus Reed's voice carried warmth as he approached her observation platform, his security uniform reflecting the dying light. Elena smiled without turning from her instruments. The atmospheric processors are running at 97% efficiency. We're ahead of schedule. She finally faced him, noting how the alien sunset made his dark eyes seem to glow. What's your excuse for being out here? Making sure our best terraforming engineer doesn't work herself to death. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with the sweet scent of the native flowers. Besides, I wanted to ask you something. Her heart quickened. They'd been dancing around their feelings for months now, stolen glances during colony meetings, lingering touches when passing data tablets, conversations that stretched long into the night cycles. The small colony of 800 souls made privacy difficult, but somehow that only intensified the magnetic pull between them. Ask away, she said. Setting down her scanner, Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, carved wooden box. I've been working on this during my off hours. The wood is from earth oak from my grandmother's farm in Tennessee. I brought a piece with me when I joined the colonial service. Elena's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a delicate ring carved from the same wood, inlaid with small fragments of the local crystal formations that gave New Eden its distinctive beauty. Elena, I know we're 30 light years from Earth, surrounded by alien wilderness, but you've made this place feel like home to me. His voice was steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. I love you, and I want to spend whatever time we have together, whether it's here on New Eden or wherever the universe takes us. She felt tears welling up, not from sadness but from the overwhelming joy of finally hearing the words she'd hoped for. Marcus, the night sky suddenly blazed with unnatural light. Both of them turned skyward to see dozens of angular ships descending through the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming like obsidian daggers. The alien vessels moved with predatory grace, nothing like the smooth curves of human spacecraft. Alert status red. Marcus's training kicked in instantly. He grabbed Elena's hand, pulling her toward the nearest shelter as his calm device crackled to life. All security personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. The first energy beams struck the colony's outer perimeter, vaporizing the research stations in brilliant flashes of light. Elena watched in horror as 3 years of careful terraforming work was obliterated in seconds. The emergency bunkers, Marcus shouted over the growing chaos. We need to get everyone to the underground shelters. They ran through the colony's main thoroughfare. As panicked colonists fled in all directions, parents clutched children, elderly. Residents were helped by younger neighbors. And everywhere the sound of the alien weapons created a symphony of destruction. The beautiful domes that had been their homes and laboratories cracked and shattered under the relentless assault. Elena's mind raced as they reached the central plaza. The atmospheric processors, if they're destroyed, it'll take decades to restore the breathable air levels. Elena, we have to focus on getting people to safety first. No, you don't understand. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to stop. Those processors aren't just maintaining our air, they're connected to the planet's weather control systems. If the alien weapons destabilize them, the resulting atmospheric chaos could kill everyone on the planet. Even in the bunkers, Marcus's jaw tightened as he processed the implications. Around them, the colony's automated defense systems were coming online, but their weapons were designed to repel wildlife and handle minor threats, not a full-scale alien invasion. How long do we have? He asked, maybe 20 minutes before the cascade failure begins. He looked at her with a mixture of love and desperate determination. Then we make those 20 minutes count. Together, they changed course toward the terraforming facility, dodging falling debris and alien patrols. The ring box remained clutched in Marcus's hand, a symbol of the future they might never have. As they reached the facility's entrance, Elena Turn to him. Marcus, whatever happens, I want you to know yes. My answer is yes. He pulled her close, kissing her fiercely as the world burned around them. Then we'll make it through this, and I'll put that ring on your finger properly. They plunged into the facility's depths, racing against time and alien technology to save not just their colony, but their chance at love. Behind them, the night sky continued to burn with the fires of an invasion that would change the course of human history forever. The terraforming control room was a chaos of flashing warning lights and blaring alarms. Elena's fingers flew over the control interfaces while Marcus stood guard at the entrance, his weapon ready. Outside, the sounds of battle grew closer. I can reroute the atmospheric processors to emergency shutdown. Elena called over the noise, but it'll take manual override at each station. How many stations? 6. They're spread across the colony. Marcus calculated quickly. The alien forces were systematic, working their way inward from the perimeter. We can reach maybe 3 before they cut us off. 3 might be enough to prevent total atmospheric collapse. As they prepared to leave the control room, Elena caught Marcus's hand. If we don't make it, we will, he said firmly. We have to. Our story doesn't end here. They emerged into a colony, transformed by war, but their love had become something stronger than fear. It had become hope itself. The secure elevator descended through to kilometers of solid granite, carrying Captain Nathaniel Cross into the depths of the Swiss Alps. The attack on New Eden Colony had reached Earth 12 hours ago via quantum relay, and now every hidden facility across the planet was stirring to life. Nathaniel's weathered hands gripped the mission briefing. As the elevator's displays counted down the floors, sublevel 40, sublevel 50, sublevel 60. When the doors finally opened, he stepped into a world he'd helped build 30 years ago, but had never expected to see activated. Double quotes, hello, Nate. The voice stopped him cold. Admiral Victoria Sterling stood at the far end of the vast underground hangar, her silver hair catching the harsh fluorescent lights. She wore the same confident smile that had captured his heart during their academy days, though fine lines now marked the corners of her eyes. Victoria. He approached slowly, drinking in the sight of her. I thought you were commanding the Titan Station Patrol. I was, until yesterday. She gestured at the immense cavern around them. Welcome to Project Lazarus. I've been overseeing it for the past 5 years. Nathaniel's breath caught as his eyes adjusted to the scale of the facility. Stretching into the darkness were dozens of massive shapes covered by adaptive camouflage tarps. As maintenance crews pulled away the coverings, the silhouettes of warships emerged, not the sleek exploration vessels of the current Earth fleet, but angular predators built for one purpose: war. The Dreadnought-class battleships, Victoria explained, walking beside him down the metal catwalk. We started building them after the first tensions with the Galactic Council 15 years ago. Officially, they don't exist. How many? 47 ships in this facility alone. Similar installations in the Rockies, the Andes, and the Himalayas house another 180 vessels. Nathaniel stopped walking, the magnitude hitting him. Victoria, what have we done? She turned to face him, her expression serious. We prepared for the day when diplomacy wouldn't be enough, when being peaceful explorers wouldn't protect our people. Her voice softened. When colonies like New Eden would be slaughtered for the crime of existing. The years seemed to collapse. Between them, Nathaniel remembered their last night together, 30 years ago, when duty had pulled them to different assignments. Victoria had been selected for the Advanced Command track, destined for the Admiralty. He'd chosen the Frontier Patrol, wanting to see the stars rather than sit behind a desk. I've thought about you, he said quietly. Every mission, every star system I've visited, I wondered what might have been. We were both so young, Victoria replied, stepping closer, so certain that duty and love were mutually exclusive. And now, she reached out, her fingers tracing the scar on his left temple, a memento from a pirate raid in the Vega system. Now we're older, maybe wiser, and we have a second chance. The moment was interrupted by the approach of Chief Engineer Rachel Kim, her tablet displaying ship status reports. Admiral, the first squadron is ready for crew integration. We've pulled veteran personnel from across the solar system, Victoria nodded professionally, but Nathaniel caught the slight tremor in her voice. How long until full deployment? 72 hours for the first wave. The remaining ships will be ready within the week. As Rachel moved on to oversee the awakening of more vessels, Victoria led Nathaniel to an observation deck overlooking the primary hangar. The flagship of the hidden fleet dominated the space, a kilometer-long Leviathan bristling with weapons systems that made current Earth fleet vessels look like toys. The SS Retribution. Victoria said, "My ship. I want you as my tactical commander." Nathaniel studied her profile in the harsh lighting. Victoria, if we do this, if we actually deploy this fleet, there's no going back. We'll be starting a war that could consume the entire galaxy. The war has already started. She replied, her voice hard. They made that choice when they murdered 800 civilians on New Eden, when they decided that humanity should be caged in our own solar system. And us? What happens to us when the shooting starts? Victoria turned to him, her professional mask slipping to reveal the woman beneath. I don't know, but I know I don't want to face it alone. Not again. He moved closer, close enough to smell her perfume, the same scent she'd worn at the academy. Victoria, I should have fought for us back then, should have found a way to make it work. We both made choices, she said, but her voice was barely above a whisper. Different paths, different priorities. What if we could have both this time, love and duty? She looked up at him, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. What if we can't? What if commanding this fleet, fighting this war, destroys whatever we might have together? Nathaniel cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheek. Then we'll face that together too. Their lips met in a kiss that held 30 years of separation, regret, and hope. When they broke apart, Victoria rested her forehead against his. The first ships launch in 60 hours, she said. We'll have maybe 48 hours to reach the Kepler system. Will we be in time? For the colony, no, but for the survivors. And for showing the galaxy that humanity won't be caged. She straightened. Admiral Sterling returning. We'll be right on time. As they watched the ancient warships coming to life around them, Nathaniel felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. The hidden fleet represented humanity's darkest preparations, their acknowledgement that the universe might not allow them to remain peaceful explorers forever. The crews are mostly veterans, Victoria explained as they walked toward the Retribution. People who've seen combat, who understand what we're facing. What about the younger officers? The ones who joined the fleet thinking they'd be exploring new worlds? Victoria's expression grew somber. They're learning that sometimes exploration requires fighting for the right to explore. They boarded the flagship together, their footsteps echoing in corridors that had never known the touch of starlight. The bridge was a masterpiece of military engineering, every surface designed for maximum efficiency in combat. Captain Cross, Victoria said formally as they entered the command center. Take your station. Nathaniel settled into the tactical command chair, his hands finding familiar controls. Around them, the crew moved with practiced precision, bringing the sleeping giant to life. Fleet status, Victoria asked. All ships reporting ready, Admiral, came the reply from the communications officer. The Retribution is fully operational. Victoria looked at Nathaniel, and for a moment, he saw not the Admiral, but the young woman he'd fallen in love with decades ago. Then let's go remind the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth's children. As the massive blast doors began to open, revealing the star-filled sky above, Nathaniel felt both dread and anticipation. They were about to unleash humanity's greatest military force, but they were also about to discover if love could survive in the crucible of interstellar war. The Retribution's engines ignited with a sound like thunder, and 30 years of separation ended as Victoria and Nathaniel faced the stars together once more. Lieutenant Zara Okafor's hands trembled slightly as she ran through the pre-flight checklist. Aboard the Prometheus, one of the newly awakened dreadnoughts emerging from the Himalayan facility, the ship's corridors still smelled of preservative compounds and fresh metal, a stark contrast to the lived-in warmth of the exploration vessels she'd trained on. Everything here was designed for one purpose, to deliver overwhelming force across the void of space. Nervous, the voice belonged to James Park. the propulsion engineer who'd been assigned to her flight crew just 12 hours ago. His quiet confidence had been a steadying presence during the chaotic crew integration process, and Zara found herself stealing glances at him whenever he worked at the engineering console behind her pilot's station. Not nervous, she replied, adjusting the neural interface headset that would link her directly to the ship's navigation systems. Just aware of what we're about to do. James moved closer, ostensibly to check her console readings, but really to offer quiet support. You know, I helped design some of these propulsion systems back when I was fresh out of the academy. Never thought I'd actually see them in action. Zara turned to look at him, noting the way his dark eyes reflected the soft blue glow of the instrument panels. You're one of the original designers? Just a small part of the team. I worked on the quantum resonance chambers that allow these ships to maintain faster-than-light travel for extended periods. His voice carried a mixture of pride and uncertainty. The theory was beautiful. The reality of what we're using it for is necessary, Zara finished, though she heard the doubt in her own voice. The bridge of the Prometheus was a cathedral of military precision, with Admiral Sterling commanding the fleet from the flagship Retribution visible on the main screen. Around them, other newly awakened vessels moved in perfect formation, their crews running through final system checks before the jump to hyperspace. All stations, prepare for quantum jump initialization, came the announcement over the ship's communication system. Estimated travel time to Kepler 440 to system, 36 hours. Zara's fingers danced over the navigation controls, her training taking over as she plotted the complex trajectory that would take them across 30 light-years of space. The neural interface allowed her to feel the ship's systems as extensions of her own body, the massive engines thrumming with barely contained power, the navigation arrays reaching out to touch distant stars, quantum chambers showing optimal resonance. James reported from his station, "We're ready for jump," as the fleet prepared to leap into hyperspace. Zara felt James's hand brush against hers as he reached for a control panel. The brief contact sent electricity through her, and she realized that despite the gravity of their mission, she was intensely aware of him, the way he moved with quiet precision, the calm competence he brought to his work, the gentleness in his voice when he spoke to her. "Jump in 10 seconds, she announced, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. The universe twisted around them as the quantum drives engaged, reality stretching and compressing until the familiar stars disappeared, replaced by the swirling colors of hyperspace. The Prometheus shuddered slightly, then settled into the strange rhythm of faster-than-light travel. "Jump successful," Zara reported, all navigation systems nominal. With the immediate crisis of departure behind them, the bridge settled into the routine of hyperspace travel. Most of the crew dispersed to their quarters or other duties, leaving Zara and James alone with the night watch officer. "Want to see something amazing?" James asked, gesturing toward a maintenance hatch near the rear of the bridge, intrigued. Zara followed him through a series of corridors to what appeared to be an observation deck she hadn't known existed. James activated the transparency field, and suddenly they were surrounded by the kaleidoscope beauty of hyperspace, streams of light flowing past them like a cosmic river. "I helped design the quantum resonance chambers, but I also worked on this," James said, his voice soft with wonder. "The observation pods, Command said they were unnecessary, but I argued that crews would need somewhere to remember why they were fighting." Zara moved closer to the transparent wall, mesmerized by the dance of light and energy outside. "It's beautiful. So are you." The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Zara turned to find James watching her, his expression open and uncertain. "James, we barely know each other," she said, though her heart was racing. "I know that you've been flying since you were 16. I know that you chose the Deep Space Patrol because you wanted to see new worlds, not fight wars." He stepped closer. "I know that you've been trying to hide how much this mission scares you, and I know that you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." "How do you know all that?" "Because I've been watching you, listening to you, falling for you since the moment you walked onto this bridge." His hand reached out, fingertips barely touching hers. "I know the timing is impossible. I know we're flying into a war zone, But I also know that life is precious and short, and I don't want to waste whatever time we have. Zara felt tears threatening, overwhelmed by the intensity of everything: the mission, the fear, the unexpected connection with this gentle engineer who saw beauty in both quantum mechanics, and her frightened heart. James, if we do this, if we let ourselves care about each other, and something happens, then we'll have had something real, he interrupted gently. Something worth fighting for. She moved closer, drawn by the warmth in his eyes. What if I'm not brave enough for this, for the mission, for us? Then we'll be scared together, he said, his arms encircling her waist. But we'll face it together. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, surrounded by the ethereal beauty of hyperspace. When they broke apart, Zara rested her forehead against his, feeling for the first time since the mission began that she might actually survive whatever was coming. Tell me about the quantum chambers, she whispered. Teach me how your beautiful theory works. James smiled, his engineer's passion lighting up his face. Well, it starts with the principle that space and time are more flexible than most people realize. As he explained the elegant mathematics that powered their ship through the void, Zara found herself falling not just for his knowledge but for the way he made complex concepts feel like poetry. They talked through the night watch, sharing stories of their training, their dreams, their fears about the mission ahead. Do you think we'll make it back? Zara asked as they watched the hyperspace currents swirl around them. I think we're going to try our best to make sure everyone makes it back, James replied. Including each other. The ship's chronometer chimed, indicating the approaching end of their hyperspace journey. Soon they would drop back into normal space, into a system where a human colony had been destroyed, where alien forces waited, where the careful theories of propulsion engineering would meet the harsh reality of combat. Time to go, Zara said. Reluctantly, time to go, James agreed. But not alone. As they made their way back to the bridge, Zara felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. She would guide this ship and its crew through whatever battles lay ahead. But now she also carried something else: the knowledge that love could bloom, even in the darkness between stars. That hope could survive even when humanity was preparing for war. The Prometheus and her sister ships continued their journey through hyperspace, carrying within their hulls both the weapons of war and the seeds of a love that would need to be strong enough to survive the coming storm. Ambassador Dmitry Kozlov stood on the crystalline balcony of the Vorthakian diplomatic complex, watching the twin moons of Vorthak Prime cast silver light across the capital city's spired towers. 3 days had passed since the human fleet's devastating arrival in the system, and the political landscape of the galaxy was shifting beneath everyone's feet. What had begun as a punitive expedition was rapidly becoming something far more complex. The sound of approaching footsteps made him turn, and his breath caught as it always did when he saw her. Princess Cilia moved with the fluid grace characteristic of her species, her iridescent skin catching the moonlight like living artwork. The Vorthakians were humanoid but ethereally beautiful, with elongated limbs and features that seemed carved from starlight itself. The Council of Elders has reached their decision, she said, her voice carrying the musical quality that had first captivated him during the preliminary negotiations. And Dmitri asked, though he could read the answer in the set of her shoulders, the way her luminous eyes avoided his. They will not surrender. The military faction has convinced them that humanity's show of force is a bluff, that your fleet cannot sustain a prolonged campaign so far from Earth. Cilia moved to stand beside him at the balcony's edge, close enough that he could smell the subtle floral scent that surrounded her. They're mobilizing the remaining battle groups. Dmitri felt his heart sink. He'd spent the last 72 hours in intense negotiations, using every diplomatic skill he'd developed over 20 years of service. The Vorthakians weren't the monsters that human propaganda made them out to be. They were a proud, ancient civilization caught between their own military extremists and the increasingly aggressive policies of the Galactic Council. How long do we have? He asked. The fleets will engage within 18 hours. Cilia's voice was barely above a whisper. Dmitri, you need to leave when the shooting starts. There will be those who see you as a legitimate target. He turned to face her fully, drinking in the alien beauty that had become so dear to him. 3 months ago, he'd arrived on Vorthok Prime as part of a last-ditch diplomatic mission to prevent exactly this scenario. He'd expected to find warmongering aliens bent on humanity's destruction. Instead, he'd found Cilia. Their relationship had begun as professional courtesy. She was the royal liaison to off-world diplomats. He was Earth's representative seeking a peaceful resolution to the territorial disputes that were tearing the galaxy apart. But late-night negotiation sessions had gradually become conversations about art, philosophy, and the dreams they each held for their people's futures. "I'm not leaving," Dmitri said firmly. "Not without you." Cilia's skin shifted to a deeper shade of blue, a sign of emotional distress among her people. "Dmitri, please be reasonable. You're asking me to abandon my entire world, my family, my duty. I'm asking you to choose love over war," he interrupted, moving closer. "To choose us over the madness that's consuming both our civilizations." Their first kiss had happened 2 weeks ago, in the shadow of the ancient archives, where Cilia had been showing him examples of Vorthakian poetry. It had been tender, hesitant, a bridge between two species that were supposed to be enemies. Since then, their stolen moments together had become the brightest points in an increasingly dark situation. "My people will see it as betrayal," Cilia said, though she didn't pull away when he took her hands in his. "And mine will see it as treason," Dmitri replied. "But maybe that's what the galaxy needs, someone willing to betray the hatred that's poisoning everything we touch." The distant rumble of spacecraft launching interrupted their conversation. Through the transparent aluminum of the balcony's barrier, they could see the lights of Vorthakian warships rising from the planet's surface, moving to join the fleet massing in the outer system. "There's something else," Cilia said, her voice heavy with reluctance. "Intelligence reports suggest your fleet isn't just here for New Eden. There are whispers that humanity has been preparing for this war for years, that the colony attack was merely the excuse you needed." Dmitri felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "What kind of whispers?" "That your hidden fleet numbers in the hundreds, that Earth has been building weapons of unprecedented destructive power." She turned to face him, her alien eyes searching his human features. "Tell me honestly, Dmitri, did your people orchestrate this war?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Dmitri had been kept deliberately isolated from military intelligence during his diplomatic posting, but he wasn't naive. The speed with which Earth's response fleet had arrived, the overwhelming technological superiority they displayed, it suggested preparation that went far beyond reasonable defensive measures. "I don't know," he admitted, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "But I'm beginning to suspect that neither of our governments wanted peace as much as they claimed." Cilia's skin shifted to a pale silver, the Vorthakian equivalent of profound sadness. "Then what are we fighting for? What is any of this worth?" Before Dmitri could answer, an urgent chimming filled the air. Cilia activated a communication device, and the holographic image of a Vorthakian military officer appeared, his scaled features tense with urgency. "Princess, you need to reach the secured bunkers immediately. Human strike craft have penetrated our outer defenses. The capital is being evacuated." As if summoned by his words, the night sky suddenly blazed with unnatural light. Streaks of fire traced paths through the atmosphere as human fighters engaged Vorthakian interceptors. In deadly aerial ballet, the distant sounds of explosions echoed across the crystalline cityscape. "Princess," the officer shouted through the communicator, "the transport is waiting." Cilia looked at Dmitri with eyes that held 1,000 unspoken words. In that moment, they both understood that their time was ending, that the forces they'd hoped to hold back were finally claiming them. "Come with me," she said suddenly. "Not as a human, not as an ambassador, but as the man I love. We'll find somewhere neutral, somewhere we can be together away from all this madness." Dmitri felt his heart soar and break simultaneously. The woman he loved was offering him everything he wanted, but accepting meant abandoning his duty to the human survivors on New Eden, to the diplomatic mission that might still prevent total war. Cilia, another explosion, much closer this time, shook the building. Through the transparent barriers, They could see fires beginning to spread through the lower districts of the city. Choose. Dmitri, Celia said, her voice urgent. Choose. US, choose love. Choose the future we could build together. He looked at her, this beautiful alien princess who had shown him that love could transcend species, that understanding could bridge any gap. Then he looked at the burning city beyond, thinking of the human colonists who had died on New Eden, of the escalating conflict that threatened to consume the entire galaxy. I choose you, he said, pulling her into his arms. I choose love. Their kiss was fierce, desperate, tasting of starlight and the promise of a future that neither of their peoples would understand. As they broke apart, Celia activated her own communicator. This is Princess Celia. Inform the council that I am indisposed. I will not be requiring evacuation transport. The officer's shocked protests were cut off as she terminated the connection. Hand in hand, they ran through the corridors of the diplomatic complex, racing toward an uncertain future as the war they'd tried to prevent raged in the skies above them. 6 months after the Battle of Vorthok Prime, Ana Santos stood amid the reconstruction efforts on New Eden Colony, watching as human and Vorthakian workers labored side by side to rebuild what had been destroyed. The morning air carried the scent of native flowers blooming again, after the atmospheric processors had been restored, and the sound of laughter echoed from the temporary housing, where refugee families from both species were learning to live. Together, the war had ended not with total victory, but with an exhausted peace, brokered by unlikely love stories, and the realization that continued fighting would destroy everything both civilizations valued. Ana had volunteered for the reconstruction mission partly out of duty, partly out of curiosity about these former enemies who were now partners in rebuilding. The new fusion generators should be online by next week, came a voice behind her. Ana turned to see Kale Vorthok approaching, his iridescent skin bearing the distinctive silver patterns that marked him as former military. He'd been one of the fighter pilots who had attacked the colony 6 months ago. Now he was helping to rebuild it. That's ahead of schedule, Ana replied, accepting the data tablet he offered. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, sending a familiar flutter through her chest. Over the past 3 months of working together, she'd come to appreciate not just his engineering expertise, but the quiet guilt he carried, the way he worked twice as hard as anyone else to atone for his part in the colony's destruction. I've been pushing the teams harder than perhaps I should, Kale admitted, his musical voice carrying undertones of regret that his species expressed through subtle harmonic shifts. Every day this place remains damaged is a reminder of what my people did. Ana set down the tablet and faced him fully. At nearly 7 feet tall, he towered over her human frame, but his posture was always carefully non-threatening, conscious of how his alien appearance might be perceived by the human survivors. Kale, you can't carry the guilt for an entire war, she said gently. You were following orders, protecting your world, just like our people were. Following orders. His skin shifted to a deeper shade of blue, indicating distress. Such a convenient excuse for causing suffering. They walked together through the construction site, past the memorial wall where names of the colonists killed in the attack were etched in both human script and Vorthakian symbols. Ana had helped design the memorial, wanting it to honor the dead while also acknowledging the path toward reconciliation. Elena Vasquez and Marcus Reed, Ana said, stopping before two names. Near the center of the wall, they died trying to prevent atmospheric collapse. Their sacrifice saved 300 lives that day. Kale studied the names, his alien features unreadable. I remember that night. My squadron was ordered to target the terraforming stations. We thought they were military installations. They were civilian infrastructure. But how could you have known? Your intelligence was flawed, just like ours was about your people. Ana touched the memorial gently. Elena was a terraforming engineer. Marcus was security. They were about to be engaged when your ships arrived. A love story cut short by war, Kale murmured, his voice heavy with emotion. Ana nodded, feeling the familiar ache of loss. She'd known Elena from their academy days, had celebrated when her friend received the New Eden posting. The senseless waste of that bright life still haunted her quiet moments. Ana, Kale said softly, may I ask you something personal? She turned to him, noting the way the afternoon light played across his scaled features. Over their months of working together, she'd come to find his alien beauty compelling rather than frightening. Of course. Why did you volunteer for this mission? Your file indicates you could have had any posting in the Reconstruction Corps. Why come here? To work alongside the people who destroyed your friend's dream. Anna was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer. Because hatred is a luxury we can't afford anymore. Because Elna believed in building bridges between different forms of life. She looked up at him. And because I wanted to understand the people who could create such beautiful art yet also wage such terrible war. Kel's skin shifted to a warm golden hue, a sign of pleased surprise. You've studied our art? Your poetry, actually. Cilia Princess Cilia shared some translations before she and Ambassador Kozlov departed for the neutral zone. The way your people express emotion through harmonic language is extraordinary. Would you like to hear some? Kale asked, then hesitated. Though I should warn you, Vorthakian poetry can be quite intimate. Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'd like that. Kale began to speak in his native language, the words carrying subtle musical tones that seemed to resonate in Anna's chest. Though she couldn't understand the literal meaning, the emotional content was unmistakable longing. Beauty, the ache of connection across impossible distances. What does it mean? She asked when he finished. It's about finding unexpected beauty in a foreign place, about learning to see through alien eyes, and discovering that love recognizes no boundaries of species or world. His golden coloration deepened. I was thinking of you when I composed it. Anna's breath caught. Over the months of their collaboration, she'd felt the growing attraction between them, but had assumed it was one-sided, that the gulf between their species was too vast to bridge. Kale, I know it's presumptuous, he continued quickly. I know that my people brought you pain, that I personally participated in actions that killed your friends. But working beside you these past months, seeing your compassion, your dedication to healing rather than revenge. He paused, struggling with the alien concepts. You've shown me that redemption is possible, that love can grow even in soil watered with tears. Anna stepped closer, close enough to see her reflection in his large, expressive eyes. Are you asking if I could love someone from the species that destroyed this colony? I'm asking if you could love me, despite everything I represent. In response, Anna reached up to touch his face, her small human hand tracing the elegant bone structure that made his species so distinctive. I already do, she whispered. Their kiss was careful, tender, a joining not just of two individuals, but of two species learning to trust again when they broke apart. Anna rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the dual rhythm of his twin hearts. The colony board won't approve, she said practically. There will be those on both sides who see this as betrayal. Let them, Kale replied, his arms encircling her protectively. We're building something new here, not just structures, but a new way of being. If love between our peoples is possible, then anything is possible. Around them, the reconstructed colony hummed with activity. Human children played with young Vorthakians, their laughter creating a polyglot melody. Engineers from both species collaborated on fusion reactor designs. Artists worked together to create sculptures that blended human and alien aesthetics. Elena would have loved this, Anna said, looking around at the integrated community taking shape. She always said that terraforming wasn't just about changing the atmosphere, it was about creating places where life could flourish in new ways. Then we're terraforming more than just the planet, Kale observed. We're terraforming the future itself. As the double sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Anna and Kale stood together before the memorial wall, honoring the past while embracing a future that neither of their species had imagined possible. The colony that had been destroyed in hatred was being reborn in love. Proof that even the darkest chapters could give way to new beginnings. In the distance, the first ships of the joint human Vorthakian exploration fleet were visible against the stars, preparing to venture into unmapped regions of the galaxy. The age of conquest was ending. The age of discovery was beginning. And at the heart of it all, love had proven stronger than war, hope more powerful than hatred, and the future brighter than either species had dared to dream.